From the White House in the office of the President of the United States, we present an address by Dwight D. Eisenhower.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. We must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific, technological elite.
And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
If you have enough data on a person, especially biometric data, and if you have enough computing power, you can understand that person better than the person understands himself or herself. And then you can control this person, manipulate them, and make decisions for them.
Can you imagine that in 10 years when we are sitting here, we have an implant in our brains, and I can immediately feel, because you all will have implants.
People will literally be part of a network. All the bodies, all the brains would be connected together to a network, and you won't be able to survive if you're disconnected from the net.
With AI taking over many of the unskilled and possibly some of the skilled activities, then there will be people for whom seems to be society. It won't have much use for these people.
We need to accept that there will be some pain in the process.
I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online.
Individual carbon footprint tracker.
Many of these things will be built directly into our bodies.
That's a hostile corporate takeover of your body and a digital surveillance censorship dictatorship.
President Eisenhower tried to warn us about this years ago. The hostile takeover of a scientific,
technological elite.
They provide much more powerful intelligence for decision making.
Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? You will rule on that.
The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin.
Now that we've cracked the code of life, it will not take much longer before we can start to play God.
The new powers that we are gaining now, especially the powers of biotechnology and artificial intelligence, are really going to transform us into gods.
It's a total, complete AI takeover of every facet of human life, like Harari and others have been saying.
Given all the technological developments, it might be feasible, even easy, to support people, even if they don't work, to give them a universal basic income, to give them enough food, enough medicine, and so forth. The big question is meaning. What will they do all day? And one of the answers is that they will just play computer games all day, virtual reality games. They will spend more and more time playing virtual reality games that will give them much more excitement and emotional engagement than anything in the real world outside.
But what I see is a huge disruption. That is, before we get to the world that Yuval envisaged in his description of the future, there's going to be a complete destabilization of the human condition and of human society. This is not going to happen quietly.
Welcome, my friends, welcome. It's Friday, September 8th, 2023, and we're not talking about conspiracy theories here today. We're not talking about theoretical things. We're not talking about things that are fiction or postulating possible futures. We're talking about what is known to being deployed, that is being rolled out right now against humanity. The information we've got, looking at just one Pentagon DARPA program, the Mad Scientist program is what they call it. Not my term for them, but they've certainly named themselves properly. It is what it is. Just looking at one presenter here and a bunch of his lectures we've watched last week, and then I've talked about some on my show, is mind-blowing. And it's because it's, again, not theoretical.
I can affect individuals' brain functions in a variety of different ways, both positively and negatively, by engaging or disengaging nodes and networks of the brain that therefore affect their cognitions, emotions, and ultimately their behaviors. Moreover, by understanding the way the brain works as nodes and networks and not as key sites that are doing any particular thing, I can also utilize various forms of electromagnetic radiation and energy to be able to disrupt brain function. The brain is an electromagnetic organ, and like any other electromagnetic substance, the integrity of those networks is reliant upon the electromagnetic pulses that flow in between them.
You have to understand, everything he's talking about is already deployed against us. He talks about bugs with toxins or vaccines in them being released. What's Bill Gates doing? Everything he talks about is already here. And is it helping us? No, our standard of living's down, our life expectancy's down. We have the highest death rate ever recorded, 44% increase in year-to-year death over the previous years. We're being murdered. From the atrazine in the water to the fluoride in the water, it's really funny to these people. Because they're the mad scientists, they're the bosses, they're the big guys. They're in control, not you.
So what we're able to do here is infiltrate the brain space with nanoparticulate matter that aggregates in situ, on site in the brain. And there's one of two things. Either penetrates from the vascular space, gets in through the bloodstream, gets in through the nose, through the mucosa, or infiltrates the vascular space and clogs it. What is the result? What's called a nanoparticulate stroke, or a hemorrhagic diathesis, fancy word, for it's a predisposition to individuals having brain bleeds.
And we know in 2017, the Pentagon was approached by the group they funded with their own project, EcoHealth Alliance, saying we want to release nanotech that does this in China as a, quote, test. And the Pentagon said that'll cause World War III. That's a bioweapon.
What we're looking at is the use of drones, for example, unmanned vehicles, aerial vehicles, ground vehicles, aquatic vehicles, to deliver payloads of various forms of neurological chemicals, neurological microbes, whether those be bacteria and or viruses, neurological toxins, to a variety of different populations that range from the individual to a fairly large aggregate of individuals utilizing multiple drones and or other forms of unmanned vehicles.
And he talks about the Australian group and the Italian group. It's all a global government in the Western world coordinating this, all funded by BlackRock, by the Rothschilds, by the Rockefeller crime syndicate. Now, I want to skip ahead from 13. We'll go back to that in a minute. Describes different ways a person could be targeted. Let's go to 14, because you look at that scar on his face. The minute I saw it, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just a pattern recognition person. I remembered a German military cult out of Prussia. There's also one in Austria. And this guy's a big military weaponologist. That when you're inducted into the cult, you wear goggles and the rest of it. You get a scar on your cheek as part of the ritual. And if you look at that, it looks like a perfect rapier slap by a sword blade into the face. I'd like to add just a little side issue. I'd like to ask him to come on the show. In fact, get him on the show, guys. Let's invite Dr. on the program. But let's play the German dueling. This is pre-World War II. This is colorized film of this particular order's ritual. Here it is.
Academic fencing in 19th and 20th century Germany and some neighboring countries like Austria was much different than it is today. They did not use the same swords or equipment fencers use in modern times. German students used Mensurschläge, or sometimes just called Schläge, designed specifically for the sport. These swords varied regionally, but were designed to cut, in a similar way to a razor. The duels were known as Mensuren and somewhat ritualized. Some protective clothing could be worn, such as padding on the arm, and some protection for the eyes and nose. The duels involved attempting to strike the opponent on the head or face, and the duel typically ended once blood was drawn. These duels were not so much about winning or striking a blow, but showing courage and the ability to take a hit. A duelist in such a match was just as proud to bravely take a cut to the face as they were to give one. Mansour was not a typical duel. There wasn't necessarily a winner or a loser, just opportunities to display one's character. Unlike in fencing, the participants didn't move back or forth. In fact, dodging or evading wasn't allowed, and could end the match with dishonor. The participants were to stand their ground and remain at arm's length until the match is over, which was overseen by a referee and often a doctor. These scars, called a smite or Schmiss in German, were so valued some even felt they elevated a man enough to show they were good husband material.
Okay, there you go. You want to cut your face up, buddy, do it all day long. Just leave us alone. We don't want to join your cult.
Because what comes out the other side should be beneficial for us. But are we willing at that point to be, quote, the obedient child, if in fact we are understanding and trusting that these systems have parentalistic benevolence as a goal, but it may not be apparent to us each and every step forward?
Oh, but your program, exactly. We must be trusting like a child being picked up in a white van to be taken to be raped and killed in a snuff film? Our teeth pulled out with pliers? Is that? Be trusting like a child. This is for the greater good. Okay. Let's go to DARPA N3 project. New project to invade the brain. How liberal is that? Non-surgically.
And things that are exceedingly indwelling and therefore highly invasive. Although the current move in the field is to make that level of invasiveness minimized so as to be able to introduce things into the brain space in ways that are minimally invasive and non-surgical, but nonetheless as potent. A case in point, I think one of the more exciting projects that I've had the opportunity to interface with is a current DARPA project called N-Cubed or N3, which is next generation non-invasive neuromodulation. And again, this is not a high side project. Our listeners can go to www.darpa.mil and just look up N-Cubed or N3. And it's a very interesting and I think in many ways highly provocative project, because what it allows us to do is to utilize state-of-the-art engineering to be able to introduce vast arrays of sensors and transmitters into the living brain that make that brain and its functions accessible in real time remotely.
With all the stuff they're putting in the shots. Let's go to radical body modification.
And if you keep going, you then get radical modifications. You're now being able to do things that humans as a species simply don't do or can't do. Seeing in the infrared or ultraviolet range, being able to hear ultrasonically
Two men having a baby.
A variety of other performance metrics.
Easter bunnies.
Humans as a species have not been able to do this. And it's not just a question of donning a piece of equipment.
That's not true. And I'm not going to get into details of it because the media will use it, but and he gets into that coming up about psychedelics. But I mean, if you're on the right acid, you can be with 10 people with bats flying around a place in the desert, and you can see them firing their echolocation out like red laser beams out of their mouths. And you look at like 5 people and you go, what do you see those bats doing? I see them shooting red light out of their mouths. And you're like, yeah. But it's got to be LSD 25, which again, they don't give the general public. And they all know this. And that was pre-90s. Everything was about human augmentation through chemicals, but what they found they didn't like. I do want Mug Club members who are on Twitter, Instagram, Rumble, everywhere, to take clips out of the show and to share it, because you're paying it forward. You're putting in the seed money to see the shows first, to see the full compendium of what's happening. But unlike Steven's show, where an hour of it's free and then you get an hour or more in Mug Club, here, this is all subscription. So I think the bridge between that is all of you to realize, I want you to, and so does Steven, to take clips out of this and share it everywhere. That brings more people to subscribe. And then the essence of what we break down also gets out of the public. And then by doing this, we're going to launch a lot of other shows very, very soon. I do intend in the very near future to make the 4th hour of my daily show, which I started all this 15 years ago, having a later part of the show subscription, the live part not subscription. We trailblazed a lot of that. We're going to go back to the 4th hour being subscription with special guests, breaking news, and more. And I would say that's only a month out or so for everybody that is a member at Mug Club. But the place to sign up at Mug Club is jonescrowder.com, promo code Alex. You get a month off, and then that funds our operation.
On March 6th, 2001, Alex Jones first predicted the September 11th attack on the World Trade Center.
You've got an element of the FBI and these war game scenarios where they can remote control a 747 and they're going to crash it into the World Trade Center.
While other networks lie to you about what's happening now, InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next. Visit Infowars.com/show and share the link today.
Omega-3 fatty acids are needed for optimal strength, and they can only be obtained through diet. They can be found in grass-fed beef, which is why the ruling class is trying to ban it, and they can be found in fish, which are arguably the best source of omega-3s. But the problem today is finding fish without a high mercury content. Your best option is our Ultimate Fish Oil and Ultimate Krill Oil at InfoWarsStore.com. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential for both our neurological and cardiovascular systems, our brain and our heart. They improve mood, mental clarity, and immune function. Get your essential omega-3 fatty acids from the best sources available, Ultimate Fish Oil and Ultimate Krill Oil. Get some today at InfoWarsStore.com.